Welcome to the podcast. My name is Danny Cola. If this is your first time listening, make sure to hit subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so that you can join me in having some epic conversations that access higher levels of potential with creatives and professionals from all around the globe. Thank you so much for tuning in. My guest today is Mateo Rosini, also known as Mateo Flows. Mateo is an embodiment coach, and we define embodiment as our own potential within us that needs to be drawn forth into actuality. In this podcast, we discuss how to override the limitations of cultural narratives in order to freely express ourselves and pursue our soul's purpose. I met Mateo at the Maui Fit Convention, where we learned several fitness modalities, interacted with several fitness professionals, and discussed nuanced ways to teach people how to recalibrate their nervous system in order to reprogram new sets of behaviors for optimal performance and self-healing. As we continue to transition during this interesting time in the world, implementing daily wellness techniques like movement, breath work, journaling, hot cold therapy, meditation, etc., it's obviously super important for individual and collective human advancement. Follow Mateo on Instagram at embody_flow. And I hope you enjoy this episode and it adds value to your everyday life.
Brother.
All right. Did you hear that? This meeting is being recorded. Do I have your consent?
Consent.
No, I'm just messing around, dude. What's been going on? We haven't really spoke or talked much since Hawaii, and I just kind of wanted to see how you've been since then. How has the fall and the winter been? How's it going? All good?
Is winter a thing? We don't really get that here in Texas.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
It's been a little bit chilly lately, I guess.
Out here, it's been freezing and snowy and dark, but nonetheless, like, try to be as positive as possible, being the light for people in kind of like a depressive mode. I mean, people just get into that cycle when you have the four seasons. In the Midwest, it's like hot, and then it goes into the fall, which is like a combination of really hot days, kind of breezy days, and then gradually starts to get colder. The leaves start changing. It's a really pretty sight. I feel like it kind of symbolizes hibernation and then the coming of something new. I think being connected to that is really important. So, I mean, I didn't mean it to ask like the seasons for you, but like how has like learning all that information over the summertime kind of unfolded over the end of 2021 for you and into this new year?
I'll just say one of the most valuable perspectives I ever absorbed was this idea of seasons that you're talking about, not just in the physical external sense, but also in the internal phases of our life. And how, we should have a winter period where we are more hibernative and internal and charging our energy so that we can spring forward into the summer of full energetic exuberance. And then the fall can be kind of an easing back down. I can't say that I live by that very well, but I definitely believe in it fully.
When I plan my medicine ceremonies, let's call them that, my cowboying with psychedelics on my own, I try to do it on the as the spring comes around, like spring into the summer. I feel like I have my most powerful connections during those times. I've had ceremonies that were like more in the winter time, which were not nearly as powerful, not nearly as vibrant as ones that I've had like in June, for example. Like I specifically remember one a couple of years back, June 21st, on like the beginning of the summer time. Very, very powerful, but I digress. So yeah, this idea of putting and living yourself in these types of seasons is very interesting.
It doesn't always correlate, right? So sometimes you're in the summer of your energetic season when you're in a winter, and sometimes we have these four seasons throughout the day, and sometimes these four seasons are throughout the week. But just recognizing when you're in one of those downs, because for me personally, like I'm a go-getter kind of guy. I like to push, and just that acknowledgement of knowing that, like, hey man, you're not going to go and you're not going to reap your harvest when it's snowing out. Like, know and recognize when is the time to chill, when is the time to recharge. And I could definitely learn how to do that a lot better. But Yeah, life comes in waves, man. Wavy life, Calabunga.
Sure. And you know, you're a go-getter, and sometimes go-getters or the warrior archetype or that type of mentality, like we have to be out of balance and go and push. That's the only way we know when it's time to come back, you know? I think it's an important thing, and everyone has their own way of understanding that. Sometimes people don't even recognize it at all. It's like this subconscious grind, their nervous system is revved up, then all these problems start happening. They don't know why. They always think, or people in general think, it might be an external thing, but sometimes that feeling resides within. What are your thoughts about like burnout? Do you think about that when you're on the grind?
Have you ever heard of human design?
No. What is that? Should I write that down on my board?
Yeah, man, this shit's crazy. So, human design is like all the rave in Austin, Texas, and almost everybody I know, they're always asking, "Yo, Mateo, what's your human design?" And forever, I like to be a skeptical about a lot of things in life. You know, I'm
Yeah.
not like you gotta win me over. You gotta Jordan Peterson me with some next level intellectualism for me to believe. You know, or I gotta experience it firsthand. So I was always very dismissive of this human design stuff, and I didn't want anybody to know my human design, so I wouldn't tell anybody my birth time because I was like, I don't like to be defined. I like to remain a mystery. I like to live outside the binds of your confinement, right?
Or
Uh,
conscience or whatever.
yeah, I don't want to be put in a box, right? I'm too
Right.
big for no box. But my girl, she broke me down. She got me for her birthday. I gave her my birth time. It was like something she wanted for her birthday. I'm like, all right, you can have it. And she looked up my human design, and bro, it was eerie how spot on it was.
So your
Uh,
time has to be available, like the time you were born into existence.
you were born, yeah.
All right, talk to me about that. I was born at 11/19. What's
I
the
don't know a
significance?
lot about it. I honestly just got turned on. We were reading a book about it, and I read like my definition. I'm a generator, right? That's my kind of energy. And the reason I
Take
bring
me,
it up
take
is,
me down to what the breakdown was for you.
man, it nailed so many aspects of myself perfectly. I felt like, you know how they say like I feel attacked? You've heard that before, like I feel attacked when things are like resonating too deeply and personally with you. I felt attacked the whole time reading this in a good way, where it was like, holy shit, yeah, this is me. And it was such a powerful mirror to recognize just who I am as an archetype. And you know, if I was still like, okay, well, what are the odds? You know, it's 1 out of 5. There's 5 different types. Like it could have been, you know, just like per chance. But then I read my girl's, and hers was so fucking spot on to her and so different from mine that I was like, wow, like that's crazy that yours is she. See, I'm a generator and she is a projector, and projectors have like all these characteristics of like needing to be invited in order to shine to their fullest. They need to be like charged with the energy of other people's affirmations, and then that brings them into their power, whereas generators are like the source of energy and this endless battery that goes until we collapse, right? They're more able to find like the projectors are more able to find like the center line, and they're more cued into this like intuitive knowledge, and they're able to like own a room in a certain way, but only once they've been like brought on. Like they use, I think it was Bon Jovi as an example, how it's like he doesn't shine until he's invited on stage because he's a, and they have all the famous people who are all the different archetypes, and it was blown.
What are the other three?
Man, it's what is it? There's manifester, there's a manifesting generator, there's a projector, and I don't remember. I got to learn more so I can speak on. I was just wondering if you'd ever heard of it
No,
because
I never heard of it. It's something to think about. I like, it's kind of ironic. You talk about like not putting yourself in a category, and then like
I don't want to do it, man. I was resistant.
naturally, we need affirmations at some point. Like we need to like affirm that the things that we are believing in and like just kind of doing in our day to day or consuming the information has somewhat some truth to it. But here's a powerful question: like when it's something comes to resonate with you, what is happening in your body? Like you listen to a Joe Rogan podcast, for example, and I remember listening to it the first time, like not even knowing what the hell that was. Like, why are these two people talking? I just know that whatever they were talking about resonated with me. Something about it resonated with me, which continues, or which why I continue to listen to shows like that. So what do you think is happening when you hear something or feel something that resonates with you from an outside source that makes you think, oh, there's something there, something interesting that I want to kind of work with. So I don't know if you have any thoughts
It's
on
a
that.
frequency, you know? It's like resonance is a frequency. Resonance is, so literally what resonance is, it's like, let's say you have a bridge, right? And you play the resonant frequency of that bridge, it's going to make the bridge shake. Whereas like you could play all these other frequencies and it's not going to affect the bridge. But if you hit it with the resonant frequency,
What about
that's what,
sound now? Sound waves.
yeah,
Yeah.
sound, but also, you know, sound is light, is energy, is matter. It's
Yeah.
all frequency and vibration at the end of the day. But if we specify just sound as a, it's like where resonance comes from. That's what it means. It's like you play a specific note in that material object has a resonance to it. So it's like you go through the spectrum, doesn't resonate, and then you hit it and it's like, now it's shaking to that. So that's what resonance is in a physical capacity. And I think that's very much what it is in an emotional, energetic capacity. It's like they're playing a tune, a frequency, and that frequency is hitting your specific calibration in a way that shakes you and vibrates you and enlivens you.
Yeah. Definitely. I definitely think like emotions and consciousness fundamentally work very much like sound spectrum, like a taste spectrum, light spectrum. I like to add like number spectrum in there too, because there's an infinite amount of numbers, and like when you put numbers together, they make physical matter, right? Geometric patterns or what have you. I like to think about tastes as well, like different combinations of tastes. Like you can have something very coherent, flavorful, tastes very good, and something that's not so coherent or bitter, sour, stale, whatever. I like to think at the
And
same time. What's that?
take that a little farther. What does it mean to have taste? Right? Taste is like your distinction of what resonates with you.
Right.
So
Yeah.
like taste is actually a really great metaphor because some people like different things. So they have a taste for different things that other people might not have a taste for. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, yeah, that actually is like exactly what it is.
Exactly, right. And I like, we talk about Joe Dispenza. Like I hear you or see you post about like videos of him and rating your guru or whatever. I want to break stuff down there. But he talks about this idea of coherence and incoherence. Like with music, you can have songs that are in tune and out of tune, coherent, incoherent, like catchy as fuck or not. Same thing with your meals. You see Mace Flow that's really coherent, really tight, really nice. A comedian, same thing. It takes time to get that coherence at the beginning of anything, whether you're learning languages or another skill, or you're learning how to cook, you're learning how to exercise, you're learning how to be a business owner. It takes time to develop that type of coherence to anything, or that type of rhythm, because we're rhythmic beings. We have a heartbeat, we move, we breathe. All these things that we're talking about have some sort of rhythm, resonance, rhythm, a coherent connection between physical objects or physical things. Um, Fundamentally, these things all work along the same ways. And, consciousness is so mysterious. I feel like if we follow some of those things, basic guys like you and I can develop some sort of rhythm and turn it into something physical, whether it's like a creation, a work of art, a business, or an idea to bring to fruition that helps humanity. I don't know. There's something there. And I think people that may be in a rut or in a depressive state, these types of ideas can be extremely helpful, wouldn't you say?
It's so important to recognize that life is waves and life comes in waves. That's probably the most useful metaphor I've ever adopted because it can allow you to disassociate from your connection to where you're at on that particular wave. Instead of thinking like, oh, I'm here, you recognize that here is just part of this. And knowing that no matter how good you ever feel, it's not going to last. And no matter how bad you ever feel, it's not going to last. All waves pass. And you can learn to make your waves steadily trending upwards. You can learn how to make your waves more mellow, or, a lot of people like to ride in those big peaks and valleys because there's more excitement to the rise and the fall of those tides. But if we don't recognize that life is coming at us in waves, then we never learn to surf. right?
Mhm.
We just get crashed around by them and trying to keep our head above the water until we're drowning.
Yeah.
But if we're skilled and we know, okay, I'm in a down period right now, but if I do the right things, if I drink my water, if I get my sunlight, if I get my exercise, I can surf this wave back up. And just knowing it's not going to last, knowing that all these waves pass is such a major key.
Yeah, for sure. The waves are infinite, right? When we say the infinite waves of consciousness, right? We're tuned in to this dimension. This is our physical way of understanding life as we know it, as consciousness as we know it. So yeah, man, very, very interesting. How have you taken some of this information and used it as a practitioner? Like you're a trainer, right? You have your own little space where you're training people with mace and kettlebells, and you're doing all sorts of like band work too. That is very interesting. So talk to me about how you take this information, make it practical for someone to digest and be like, oh, this is interesting here, and really see progress with it. Because what we're talking about gets a lot of bad rap, a lot of negative stuff. Oh, you're talking about resonance and frequency, and it's so woo woo. But like, I feel like I'm an intelligent guy. There's a lot of positive things that I've done in my life, and there's something here that rings true, especially with all the analogies that we've made. So how have you made this practical for people to be like, oh, interesting?
Yeah, there's a lot I could say on that. You know, the first thing is the breath, just recognizing that breathing is like such a fundamental anchor and such a powerful metaphor for this wave, because it is the in and out, just like the tide. And it can,
Yeah.
through the mediation, the mindful mediation of our breathing patterns, we can learn how to surf the waves a little better. And that becomes a whole art form that I teach, I practice, I share with my students, and we weave it into our movement so that breath is always emphasized as we're moving. Everything's always either an inhale or an exhale, you
Mhm.
know. Um,
So you're talking about a practice there that can put your body in some sort of balance, let's say, in that moment to feel the waves, the resonance inside of you, to get clear on the information. I like to think of meditation and breathing like that. It's one tool that could put your nervous system at best at an equilibrium state to where you can kind of slow down the chatter. This is like what I tell my clients. I also think it's very ironic that, we tie in breathing with spirituality or being spiritual. The fact that the word breathe or breath in a lot of languages, or at least in a Latin form, like respiri or spirare, spiri, spiritus, like that is a translation for breathing or breath. Spiritus is a Greek translation for breath. Respirare in Italian means to breathe. The fact that the word spirit exists in the actual word is very ironic and interesting to me when you talk about what can happen to the nervous system when you intentionally focus on your breathing, specifically through your nose, out through your nose. Yes, the mouth inhales and exhales may potentially help, right? At least get air through your body, oxygen through your body. But there's something about the nose that balances out oxygen and carbon dioxide that could put you more at a balanced state that quiets the chatter. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that's ironic?
there's a lot going on physiologically there. There's the breathing being the only autonomic function of our body that is both unconsciously controlled and can be consciously mediated.
Mm.
So, like, there's something about that that makes it a really particular anchor, because you are bringing consciousness to the naturally unconscious. So, if you don't have to think about breathing, you're going to breathe. But if you do think about your breathing, you're bringing your awareness back into your physical felt sense. And that can help you get out of the stories in your head. There's also, what's happening with your blood chemistry as you breathe. You're switching the pH. There's what's happening with your heart rate. If you breathe faster, you start to raise your heart rate. You start to raise your mind state, over oxygenate your brain. If you start to slow your breaths down, you can bring your nervous system into a more calmed, relaxed, parasympathetic state. So literally, I think of the breath as almost like an instrument that when you get good at, you can learn how to play so that you can moderate yourself in whatever way need be. And there's a lot that goes into that outside of just inhales and exhales. There's the sounds you make on your breathing. So if you're, an exhale that's like, right? Like that is a breath just with vibrational intention. And we're talking about how everything's vibration, right? So by bringing that vibration, what you're doing is you're physically shaking a part of yourself. And based on the tone that you use, you can actually target different areas of your body. Like if I go with a low tone with a, it's going to drop down into my lower, like, pelvic floor. And if I go higher with like a it's going to raise up into like the top of my crown. You're going to physically feel this. This is not like a woo woo thing. You can do it at home and you will see like, okay, E is more up here, O is more down there. And then you start to talk about how, the energetic cartography of our body, like maybe use something like the chakras, which is a really interesting map that for a long time, again, I was very skeptical of. I was like, I didn't get it until somebody explained to me that it's an experiential mapping. And if you think about it really simply, here's an exercise anybody can do who doesn't understand chakras is all you got to do is close your eyes and imagine in front of you a floating purple orb. And then with your right finger, kind of try to point to where that purple orb is in space in relation to your body. And you'll notice that you're pointing to around your third eye. So there is a physicality to your internal visualization. So of course, third eye, there is, your expression resonates from your throat. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Your pelvic floor is responsible for sexual reproduction, right? Your stomach literally is a fire that creates the metabolized energy that fuels you. So you start to see all that and you're like, oh, okay, it makes sense now. And the one that's really tricky is the heart, because it's like, why is the heart where we center love? And that one for me took going really deep. You got to really drop into the experience of like, okay, I'm feeling love, which is hard for me to even really tap into if I'm being honest. And where is that located? And if you really search deep, you'll come to find that it's right around your heart center. And all of a sudden, all these mappings start to make sense.
Yeah, 100%. Like, are you musically inclined? You know how to read music or anything like that?
I went to school for music production. It's been a while.
But you know how to read music, or you went through some sort of like
Yeah.
So when I started learning about the chakra system, I was like 2 years ago, and like these areas of nerve plexuses, as opposed to getting all woo woo and saying chakra because it turns a lot of people off. They're just nerve plexuses, like you said, from the pelvis to the stomach, your internal organs, your intestines, your heart, up to your throat, your third eye, and then the crown. It's just so much energy coming through. So I look at like a sheet of music, because the chakras also align with the color, and the color of a rainbow, the rainbow actually, and then several notes, the notes of each scale, right? I'm not sure exactly what they are, but each chakra and each main seven note, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do.
And then it goes up from C.
Yes, exactly, right. So that is there. So I would always look at like sheets of music being put out in this elegant format, and then I would equate things happening in your life that you want to happen, or a coherent situation that starts to develop, things that, like Dispenza talks about, the synchronicities, the breadcrumbs that keep happening throughout the day. I look at that as a musician writing like a really hit song, a creative, coherent song that's very catchy, that resonates with a lot of people. And then I start thinking about, okay, well, look, there's got to be a way to tune your body. Like if you talk about the throat chakra, are you suppressing your truth? Are you speaking your truth? Is it out of balance? Is it too aggressive? Is it too soft? Like your chakra system, just like a guitar, could be out of tune, or your body can be out of tune simply playing some crap music. But the thing is, it's a quick fix, because once you get really good at tuning the guitar, you can just tune it real quick, boom, and start playing your songs again, and start writing in this coherent manner. I feel like, as exercise practitioners like you and I like making these analogies and share with people, to speak about it on platforms like this, to make it a little bit more, interesting. I never thought of it like that. So what are your thoughts about making musical analogies, sheet music, to situations that unfold in your life?
I love it, man. I love it. Music was my first taste of magic.
Yeah.
It was before I was into movement. I like music was the thing that I like touched and was like, okay, there's something more here. Music is the proof that humanity is greater than we know.
Yeah, yeah, we
What
didn't fuck that one up. Music is never, it's a great
what
thing.
is it? What is it? It's like, music and comedy, these elements that are like, what's going on here? We don't
Art
know,
form, yeah.
no idea, but for some reason it resonates, right? In different tastes. People have different tastes for different music. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, make your life a beautiful musical masterpiece, orchestrate well, and the
Right.
breath is like the the conductor of it all. If you're tense and you're stressed, you're gonna hold that breath, and sometimes all you need to do is turn your into
Mm, interesting. When you were a kid, did you have like big dreams and goals? I mean, now you're a generator, or what did you say that your your category was, a generator, right?
yeah, yeah. I was
So
always trying to take over the world, man.
so going back, share with me some of like your childhood dreams and talk to me about how they've evolved as you've gotten older. Because you're a young man, you're in your late 20s, right?
29, yeah.
And we need people like you in this world to keep putting out a truthful message and to go out on their own solo endeavors. And I mean, really, you don't need a construct like a job, like a physical corporate job. You don't necessarily need a diploma from a crazy big school to become successful or interact with people, build relationships, build business, create new ideas, all that stuff. So talk to me about like the dreams that you had growing up, who influenced you, and how they've evolved over your life thus far.
Yeah. So something that's interesting about me is I don't have a lot of association with my past, and that's a story that I've made true by continuing to tell it. And it's like there was a part of it that was naturally innate. um, I like to tell people that my entire memory is spent memorizing rap lyrics. Like I could spit like every lyric to songs that I knew all throughout high school, but I don't remember what the hell I was doing or what I was up to. I think from a very early age, I resonated with the archetype of wanting to take over the world. I read, do you ever read Artemis Fowl when you were a kid?
No.
Interesting book about a young, well, it was interesting when I was in elementary school. It's about a young kid who was a super genius, and he like took over the world. And yeah, I always liked that archetype. I always loved comic books. I got into like shonen anime in like middle school, and that really like layered my subconscious with these archetypes of you can achieve anything if you just train. You can overcome lack of innate talent by never giving up. You can really become something admirable if you're willing to sacrifice everything to stand up for what you believe in. And I think those things forged me and made me until around high school when gangster rap got a hold of me. And then it was like, I was a hip hop head, and just didn't really have direction, got caught up in for a long time, and just trying to have fun, I guess, trying to socialize, trying to experience life and relate with my friends. I was a very social creature. And then I had this experience in college that really changed my life, where I was really into rap. It was a passion of mine. But it was my first taste of flow. Was sitting there with the beat on and just playing it on loop, listening to different patterns and different rhymes until I could put things together. And rhyming is very much like flowing, right? Because you have these pathways that you've created, but the game is to take the pathways that are well explored and branch them off into new terrain. It's like you're constantly trying to find the new novel connection that hasn't yet been established. So, there's the reason I love to steal Mace Flow. It's the same reason I love to sit around and freestyle when I was younger.
That concept right there can be attributed to so many different things. Like I hear comedians talk about this all the time. Like there's an idea, and then to open that door and to go into several different areas of that space to see what works, what doesn't work. Rapping, music, very similar. Yeah, I like what you're saying. Keep going.
Yeah, so I loved it, but I was also very caught up in like just I guess the cultural programming of feeling like, oh, life is about partying. It comes around college age of like, this is what we got to do. We got to get shit faced every night
Yeah.
and just turn up. For what? I don't know, but it's how
Did
we
you
were.
feel like that associated with like status and like hierarchy, like showing dominance amongst other males and that type of thing early on in your, late teens, early 20s? I know I felt it. I know I felt like,
Yeah.
especially when I first started personal training and I was like the young guy at the gym that I was at, and all these other guys were in the game for a long time, making money, training, and um going, like, I worked for a Valley Total Fitness, so it's no surprise that like at the end of the week we'd all get together and go to bars and nightclubs and do that and see who can spend the most money on this, like stupid shit that young kids do. I don't know, did you feel like you got caught up in status and all that shit too?
I don't know many young people who can escape it. It just kind of wraps us up as we transition from high school to college. It's like it's so in the lexicon. You watch video, like movies, and college is just frat people just getting fucked up. I remember Blue Mountain State. You remember that TV
Yeah,
show?
I do remember that. Yeah,
I
I
remember
never
watching
watched a ton of it, but I do remember Blue Mountain
this
State.
is life. You get fucked up and you get in shenanigans and you try to get laid, and this is what it's all about.
Yeah.
And then, but there was also this passion that I had for rap. And whatever passion it was a passion. And I remember this night very specifically. I had this older friend. I'll never forget this. I've told this story so many times because it really stuck with me. This older friend, his name was Jay Digi. He was a rapper, maybe 4, 5 years older than me. And we were at the house, man. We were breaking down bars. We were writing to beats. And there was the biggest party happening like 2 doors down. And literally everyone was at the party. And like, I was like, yo, Jay Digi, the party's happening. We got to go to the party, man. It's the party. It's right there. Everyone's going. And he's like, nah, man, I want to sit here and I want to write raps. And I was like, okay. And I remember throughout the whole night, I'd go over to the party. I'd be in the party. I'd be standing around there, I'd be looking at people. And then I'd walk back into the house and Jay Digi's by himself there, just on the computer, writing raps. I'd be like, okay. And then I'd go back to the party. I'd look around at people. And then I'd come back and I'd see Jay Digi writing raps there. And something clicked in my soul in that moment that I never forgot, which was like, this is the way, right? This is the way. The turning away from what everyone else is doing, this externalized pressure, what you're told is the right thing, to that true inner innate calling of what your soul is drawing you towards. And ever since then, I've been, I've idealized the hermit, the craftsman, the guy who just stays inside and masters his art. Has always been, and then from then on, I was never the same. It was like a seed that was planted in me that got watered through more and more experience. I'd still try, I'd go out, I'd party, I'd get drunk, I'd be walking through the streets at night, like, why do I do this? Like on the way home, never feeling good about it, And then I went deeper into that and I just started following that passion and that craft. And then I went to school for music production. And it was just like, I got to understand what this is. What is this magic? I wanted to figure out the magic. Like how we in school did an amazing job of pulling all the magic out of it for me. It was like, by the end of it, I was like, there is no magic. It's just all, anyway, school does a great job of crushing your, your
yeah, dude, I was in the education system for 6 years. So like I felt it. I couldn't express myself as true as I wanted to, let's say, as a teacher in the system that we have. I mean, and then when you realize too, like, you don't get compensated for all the work that you're putting through. Like, I realized that I loved teaching in the 6 years because I didn't care about how much I was making and all that. But when you look at like your root chakra, what's also tied to that is your ability to be grounded. And part of that is like financially grounded. And if you let that shift too far to one direction, whether you don't care or you overly care, you're going to be out of balance. So I felt like, okay, well, if I want more in my life, you got to step up. And then when you start seeing what the market tells you for the value that you bring to it over a short amount of time, it's like, okay, well, you don't need that establishment. You don't need to be a teacher. You can make your own. You can figure out a way to jump the hurdles and make it work. But yeah, it'll totally, like, that system is designed just to have rule followers and pull the truth and the all the life out of you almost. It can be very draining, Anyway, that's awesome. That, it makes me think about the question I wanted to ask as you were telling your story is, and not to like derail too much from like your truth and your dreams and your thoughts about how you went about your life, but what was your relationship with your mom and dad like growing up when you were young and then into that teenage, early adulthood life?
Yeah, I always had like a tumultuous, I'm not sure what tumultuous means, but I think that's the right word that I'm looking for.
Tumultuous. Keep going.
Relationship with my mom, because I was an ADD kid who was always getting in trouble, and she was a single mom who didn't know how to deal with it very well. So there was some friction there for sure.
Tumultuous, making a loud, confused noise, uproarious. Okay, so you had that kind of
Yeah,
relationship with your mom. So
generator energy, as I call it now.
okay.
Back in the day, they used to call it ADD. You know,
Yeah.
um, and yeah, I always got in trouble, man. I got expelled from like 4 or 5 schools
Really?
before third grade, man. Like,
Really?
what's like, how do you do that? Like, I don't
So
know, man.
like doing all sorts of like misbehavior, like talking back to the teacher, like not listening, that
I
kind of
never
stuff.
thought I was a bad kid, man. I just couldn't sit still. I didn't know that I was a mover, I didn't know that I needed to fucking move my body, and they were trying to keep me sitting in a chair all day. And it's like, oh, you wonder why the fuck? And it's like, to this day, I can train exercise 4 or 5 hours a day. And it's like, at the end of it, I can sit still for a little bit. But thinking back and trying to like imagine a younger, more energized, less controllable version of myself being put in a chair, it's like, it's psychotic. I can't. So yeah, it didn't work for me. And that was my dad. He wasn't really around growing up. I lived with him in high school. I moved down to Mexico and lived with him for like a year and a half. And
Mexico, huh?
we have a good relationship. It's just we don't see each other a lot, but I love him, and it's like very friendly.
That's the same kind of thing with my dad. My dad lives in another country as well, and I haven't seen him in 5 years, but we talk, friendly, love him. It's
Yeah.
awesome. Very interesting. Do you feel like that with anybody, whether when you talk about yourself or family members or, clients or whatever, students, potential students, do you feel like the relationship with mom and dad or the traumas of the mom and dad relationship and the growing up have any sort of relevance to the diseases or the issues that are popping up in people's lives, do you think? I feel like that was a very clunky way of asking it, but I guess I'll rephrase it. Do you feel like the relationship with your mom and dad has an effect on how things play out as you get older?
Definitely. Undoubtedly. I would love to hear more about what your thoughts are on that and how you're thinking about that in your training, because it's not, we are formed by our traumas, whether it's mom, dad, sister, aunt, brother, sister,
Yeah.
neighbor down the street. Like, we are made by our traumas, but obviously our mother and father are two of the biggest figures in our formative years. So yeah.
I think it's a touchy subject, first of all. It's something that I think about quite regularly because, like, I came into this world with parents who loved the shit out of me and they did the best that they can to provide me with the opportunities possible and also the intelligence to be like, yo, do it. Just whatever, soccer, music, school, whatever projects, just go. What do you need? Right? To the best that they can. Like, they were just working blue collar people. And like, I was lucky to experience life like that growing up. Great relationship with my mom and dad, great relationship with my brother, really good friends growing up. Like, I was in a rock band from the time I was in 7th grade to ending high school. And like, my dad helped us financially with a lot of that. And my best friend, who ended up being the best man at my wedding, really good friend of mine, helps me out with a lot of my content. Also, his dad would help us a lot with that. So I'd always ask my dad, I'm like, Dad, do you think we're going to be famous? Do you think we're going to be big? Because I was always a dreamer growing up. And he'd be like, don't worry so much about that. Just do your thing. And then later, as I still ask him, I'm like, did you ever think that we were going to be famous one day? And he's like, it was just to make sure that you're not on the street dicking around. You're focused. You're putting your attention on something creative. So my parents, they like had the intelligence to recognize that. So I grew up in this environment of positive affirmations. Now, it wasn't always rainbows and sunshines. Like, my dad and I are very similar, so we butt heads, right? Like, and I feel like some of those interactions definitely have an effect on the way like I go through my life. You know, I'm also can be very stubborn, I'm hard on myself. I'm persistent, keep going, keep going. Um, Sometimes I only hear the things I want to hear. You know, I think we all can be guilty of that. Um, yeah, I think that has everything to do with how I grew up. But I also feel more on the positive end, where it's like I feel obligated to keep teaching people a message about wellness and a positive lifestyle, teaching people about nervous system health, breathing, the benefits of temperature. Like I'm obligated to do all these lessons and the work that I do because of the parents that gave me the opportunity to do what I'm doing. So yeah, man, I also feel like it plays a tremendous role in how you choose your partner, your relationship partner, your romantic partner, which I think is also very interesting. I feel like we're kind of pulled to a woman or a significant other that like mirrors your parents in some sort of weird way. And I think that also plays a role. And sometimes like subconsciously, you don't realize why, like, let's say you have relationship issues or whatever, like you can't subconsciously see yourself or you end up with the same kind of toxic person. It's the same kind of repetitive pattern that, you know, ultimately hopefully gets broken or doesn't, and it just kind of keeps going or breaks you. But I feel like a lot of times those issues may come back to some of the trauma experience when you're young, in a nutshell.
We are made and formed by trauma. We are constructs of trauma. Our trauma is what shapes us.
Yeah, so it's touchy. It's hard. You know, it's hard to ask people about these things. But Paul Chek talks about just ask questions, keep asking questions, and like a practitioner can say, "Oh, this is the trauma that jacked you up, so let's fix that." You can't do that because that repels people. I feel like so. It's ask the proper questions. The people at some point get to it on their own. What are your thoughts about that?
I mean, anything Paul Chek says, I'm fucking on.
It's amazing.
He says some crazy shit, but I'm like,
Yeah.
if Paul Chek says it, I'm with it, you know?
Yeah, well, at least I want to digest it a little bit more. Over the years I've been listening to Paul, I've been open to just going deeper in on like a lot of the things about DNA being a cosmic antenna system. So let's kind of shift back into that. Joe Dispenza talks about our DNA being a cosmic antenna system. There's 99% of our DNA is junk DNA, and 0.00 whatever percent is actually the DNA that is our self-expression. So what are your thoughts about junk DNA? What are your thoughts about this whole manifesting or manifestation idea? It gets a lot of crap, but I've always been a deep believer in something bigger than us, bigger than me. I've always been a dreamer, thinking I'm going to be in a rock band one day, thinking about being a professional athlete. Now with the podcast, like I dream about being like Joe Rogan status. Like I've always dreamt big. And I think this whole the idea of manifestation is very interesting. So break down what your thoughts are about it.
I do like to hold on to my identity as a skeptic in a lot of senses. I don't know why, but
It's good to be a skeptic. It's part of the 4 agreements. The 5th agreement is be skeptical, but then, you know, make sure to be open as well.
Yeah, man, but I've seen some things. I've seen some things in my life that make it really hard to deny the reality of the power of bringing yourself into a certain state of being in coherence with the universe that helps to work with the universe in alignment. And I've seen some things, man. I mean, like I did a manifestation ritual to draw in companionship into my life. And like a week later, I met my girlfriend after being 2 years like single. And I've seen people manifest in amazing, crazy things from particular practices that help to bring you into that coherence. I don't know anything about DNA. You know, I'm no expert in that regard, but I like to be skeptical and I like to be critical. And I think that's what the fun of the Judge Your Guru series I'm doing.
I like it. Keep going with that, dude. That's cool.
It's a clickbaity like thing, right? Judge Your Guru, I think is, I just, it found it funny to me. But really the idea of it is to highlight what makes these different teachers unique, what makes their message like valuable, and also to like see like where I can poke holes in these things. And for me, like I do believe in the idea of, it's like you need to draw yourself into this potentiation of where you're trying to go. It's like if you don't know where you're trying to go, that's step one. You're never going to get there. And then once you know where you're trying to go, there's ways to bring yourself in alignment to draw that forward more effectively. But also, you got to take action. And that's like something that I always overemphasize. Like you'll see a lot of spiritual leaders, and this is why I love fucking Paul Chek, man, because he's fit. And you see how many spiritual motherfuckers are like just not that fit. They got bad posture. And I judge that, because it's like, okay, like, yeah, let's see you quantum manifest a 6-pack, brother. Let's see you quantum manifest a 500-pound deadlift. No, you got to fucking lift that shit. And as woo as I get is out there into the spiritual realm, and I will believe almost anything if it's intellectualized to me properly. I believe in some crazy shit because I can convince my intellectual judging skeptic mind with proper context.
Yeah, right.
But still, I have yet to see the man who can lift 500 pounds without training it, simply through visualization. There is a physical reality to the world that I think cannot be overlooked as well. And I find my job is a lot of time, like I consider myself an embodiment coach, is to help people who are on the spiritual path come back into themselves in a physical sense. Oftentimes we get so dissociated. We get in this realm of like thinking the spirit is like out there and above, and really it's like down here and within. So that's my thought on like manifestation. It's like, okay, yeah, I believe it. I know it. It's true. It happens. But also you got to lift some weights every once in a while.
Yeah, definitely. Or like actually practice the skill. Like I'm always fascinated with comedians, and particularly, I mean, I listen to a lot of Joe Rogan, so I listen to like his interviews with comedians, and they always talk about the process of writing and listening back and writing and listening back and then performing it and then taking bits and pieces back and forth. Like the process has to be had. You have to go through the gauntlet in order to make it tight and compact. And there's no substitute for that. That's not going to happen just by watching a couple of Kill Tony episodes thinking you can do it. You know what I'm saying? Like the time.
God damn it if I don't want to try.
Yeah, right. Have you ever tried stand-up before?
You know what's crazy is for years, one of my bucket list items was to travel to LA so that I could go to a Kill Tony episode. Yeah. And now they're like 10 minutes from my house. Dude, and I haven't gone once.
I'm the biggest fan. I swear to God. Like I watch it all the time, and I listen to all the shitty ones, and I listen to the semi-good ones, and then you listen to the really good ones, and it's like, okay, see, like the guys that have done it 7 years, you can totally tell. Yeah. You know, there's no substitute for quality repetition. And even if it's shitty repetition, the feedback you get from bombings gotta be like the feedback we get from like hitting weights and like being broken down and trying a new flow we can't necessarily get right away, but it'll take some time to get there, right? Like there's no substitute for putting in the time. And I feel like that's something really important. Yeah, there you go. The work makes me happy. I mean, it's important, but then like I talk about like burnout and too much because that's a reality as well. And it could be a harsh one if you ignore it for too long. Like I feel like the universe does a good job of throwing these like symbols out there, and you know we put meaning to everything. And I know that if like stupid things start happening, like a flat tire and a cracked windshield and a speeding ticket all in a couple weeks, I feel like that's me playing pickleball with the universe saying, hey dude, slow down. You don't have to do this fast all the time, okay? Relax. And if I don't listen to those cues and pick up on those cues, or my shoulder, or like something that's ailing me, headaches, bad sleeping, you know, sometimes it might be an appetite thing that I'm not interested in this or that. Like, what's the message there? What are your thoughts about listening that way?
Yeah, I'm working on that, man. I'm working on trust. I'm working on trust in the universe. It's something about the personal training thing and the doing it on your own is that I'm constantly fluctuating between the state of scarcity and overwhelm. It's like, I'm never just good. It's like, I'm either like, fuck, I need to grind, or God damn, I'm grinding too much.
Okay.
So my word for 2022 is trust, because I've been through these waves of overload and scarcity so many times that it's gotten to the point where I'm like, I have to know at this point that it's going to work out, because it has for years.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
at a certain point. So that's my word for 2022 is trust. I'm trying to learn how to trust a little bit more, how to let myself know that it's okay to settle down. It's okay. And for me, the burnout doesn't come so much from, like the doing can oftentimes fill me up. The burnout comes from the not resting and the not recovering and the not, doing the things I need to come back to
You
myself.
train 7 days a week? Are you training like all day long? Like, what's your schedule like?
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing some sort of movement almost every day. Like, my life is movement.
Well, training people. I mean, are you training clients all the time in small groups and workshops?
I've gone down to Sundays off, but it used to be 7 days a week. Now I'm just doing 6 days a week. And yeah, it alternates, it fluctuates. I just do 2 classes now. I teach a breathwork class and I teach a steel mace flow class, but mainly I'm only working with people one-on-one. I do a lot of other stuff though too. I'm also like facilitating transformational journeys for people on haptic beds.
Okay.
So fluctuate between various different offerings, and my training has definitely evolved into something very unique. It's like, it's less personal training now and more like, how do you use the physical to help people embody their breakthroughs?
Mm. So you're really kind of honing in on the whole breakthrough thing and cathartic type feelings for your clients.
Yeah, like you see me doing all that crazy stuff with the bands, right? And
Yeah.
what's that all about? That is helping people gain better stimulus so that they can properly orient themselves into optimal postural positions, because those optimal postural positions have a direct correlation to different states of being, mood, and expression. For super simple one, like if your shoulders are rounded inwards and you're always here all the time, you're depressed and sad and not confident. And if you're open and broad, you're in a much more receptive, confident, dominant state. And
Sure.
that's just the very simple one, but it gets infinitely more complex to, girls who have their knees locked out. Like, what does that relate to? That's a being stuckness, right? It's like you're not ready to react. And girls have a tendency. Why do girls have a tendency to lock their knees out, Danny? You got the answer for me on that?
Lock their knees out on what?
Just standing. Like you notice that a lot. The female clients always tend to lock their knees out a lot more than male. I've almost have no males to do it. And I have like 50% girls who have a tendency to lock their knees out when they're standing.
Yeah, like when I cue, I'm always cueing like, all right, let's reconnect the feet. Think about the feet again, right? All right, soften the knees, which is my also second cue right after. So like I cue the softening of the knees a lot, the reconnecting of the feet, the creating tension with the ground. I reemphasize that a lot. So I never really like noticed it really. Maybe more with my kids. With kids, I'll see it a little bit more, but they don't know yet how to
How
maneuver
many
their
young
body.
girls do you train? You train young girls as well?
It's not as much as the young boy population. There are some. A lot of my female clients are like the moms of the kids, so there's a lot of that. But I'll pay attention a little bit more with the straightening. I don't see it a lot. I don't see a lot. But then again, I've been training a lot of these people for the last 2.5 years. You know what I mean? So we've developed a lot of really good uh, behavior and good practice to break some of that shit. You know what I'm saying?
And my point is just that there are different ways that the body holds that have greater impact than we normally recognize. I'm trying to think of another example here. Like, yeah, I mean, like if your shoulders are, and this is something I'm trying to get a little deeper into more, but like I have a client, and his thing is that his shoulders are too far back, too far protracted, like too connected.
Yeah.
And he's also a wizard himself. So he was relating that to like his backside being representative of his past and his front side being representative of his future, and how if he's locked in his backside, he's kind of like being stuck in from going forward in life in certain ways.
Oh,
Whereas certain people who are, all these different postural orientations, if you have your front line really disconnected and open, how that might relate to uh different thing.
and that's the thing. There's a lot of like, it could be this, it could be that. And I feel like sometimes if I don't understand it fully, it's hard to explain it, obviously, and then I'll lose somebody on the other end. Like,
Well, I'll tell you what's for sure is there is a direct correlation between how your nervous system composes itself under stress and how your emotional state reacts to stress. So like people who, this is something we do in MMA. We beat each other the fuck up. You ever done MMA? You get so tired, the most tired you've ever been, and someone's punching you in the face while you're that tired. It's crazy. Like the craziest stimulus I've ever experienced in my life. And then afterwards, we force ourselves to hold this posture and to not show fatigue and to not show signs of weakness, to not show hurtness. And what that does, man, is it builds this neurological resiliency that translates to other things outside of life. So that when, like something goes wrong, whether it's, for me, it's like a client cancels on me or something like that. I don't have as much reactivity because I've trained my nervous system to compose itself. And if the world was collapsing around me and my whole life was falling apart, I like to think that I'd be able to maintain my emotional composure because that nervous system is so well practiced. So this is a thing I always have clients do. I always have them make sure that they end the last rep with control. So they're never collapsing out of anything, because when you collapse out of things, what you're doing is you're teaching your nervous system that when things get hard, we can fall apart, right? And I think you would find this just very simply. Look at the people who are fit and who train and tell me they don't have more emotional resiliency than the people who don't. And you can extend that in various different directions. For example, the people who do yoga and are super flexible, they tend to be very wavy and flexible in their emotional state, right? The people who do like bodybuilding and are super stiff, they tend to be very like stuck in their ways and stiff in their mindset and not very like easily moved to compromise.
I've had very like yoga-esque people also be stuck in their ways. I feel like that's such an individualistic thing as well. A characteristic is that you can be stuck in your ways in so many different unique ways, if that makes any sense. I feel like all of us could be subject to that. Like we want some sort of like comfort. We need a little bit of that.
And I'm not necessarily talking about like a fixed perspective, but I'm talking about more like the way that the waves of life that we're talking about, the seasons of life, how they shake you and move you, right? So like somebody who's naturally hypermobile and like very flexible, like when something goes wrong, they tend to get like, whoa, by it. And on the other side of things, someone who's really stiff, something goes wrong, I don't know, just keep on trucking on, like.
I get your analogy. I understand that for sure. There's definitely similarities, but anomalies as well, outliers, like I like to think people with good posture, straight spine, more aligned, they can tie into a lot of downloads, let's call it, from the ether, from the universe, whatever. But that's not necessarily the case. Like Stephen Hawking was a guy that was, like that, and one of the most brilliant minds ever, So it's like,
Interesting.
I don't know. I like to stack all these things, right? We talk about the nervous system. We talk about getting calm and getting quiet with the chatter, organizing your thoughts, getting clear on what your intentions are as far as like what your goals are, how you feel like you're going to add value, maybe getting clear on some of the things that make you anxious, maybe getting clear on some of the things that make you feel frustrated or some of those lower level vibrations so that you can see it on paper, change the perception of what that thing is. Where I was going with this is that I like to couple all these things. So like the flow training, the breath work, the intermittent fasting, the temperature change, the hot and cold, you name it, NMN, NAD, IV infused treatments, hyperbaric oxygen chamber. Like I like to do all the psychedelics, right? Like microdosing psilocybin, or one of my favorites is MDMA. Like I feel like that drug, after this phase 3 trials are done and it gets out there to the public and people actually start experiencing like real healing from real traumatizing shit, it's going to be very powerful. But also, like, I feel like that drug could also improve some of the downloads that a really intelligent, smart person gets. Like, who's to say? I feel like there's something there. But my point is to like couple all these things and stack them. And this is part of like the daily ritual, part of a lifestyle that gets you to become, over time with the work, self-actualize, the highest version of you, the highest potential of you, or at least a version of that. Because if infinity is infinity, then you and I have had this conversation an infinite amount of times, wearing all different types of clothes in different parts of the world.
Ready to have your mind blown?
Yeah, let's go. What tell me.
So you think that if infinity is infinity, then that means that this exact same conversation has happened infinite times.
Yeah.
But infinity scales in both directions. Infinity doesn't just scale outwards, it also scales inward. So there are infinitesimally small distinctions within us that make it so that we will never be repeated, because infinity goes both ways.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. See, like I guess the point there too is like the human brain can only conceptualize a certain capacity of information beyond certain constructs. Like
that was a mushroom realization I had.
Is that what happened? You realize that you can infinitely go the opposite way so that this doesn't happen again the same way?
Because I was thinking about that shit he always says on Joe Rogan. That's a Joe Rogan thought, right? Where he's like, if infinity exists, that means that we've had this exact same conversation infinite amounts of times. And I was also thinking about chaos theory. I don't know if you're familiar with chaos theory, but chaos theory talks about complex dynamics and why it's impossible to predict certain systems, because of the reason that we can't predict the weather more than 7 days out, like reliably, is because it's a complex system, which means the factors that determine it are infinitesimally small. They scale down to such a degree that like even like on the quantum level, a little shift this way can scale up into a huge shift that way. Mm-hmm. So it makes it impossible to be fully, truly predictable. Because like literally like me waving my arm can have an effect it's the butterfly effect essentially. So I was like putting those two thoughts together one time when I was on mushrooms looking up at space, and I was like, holy shit, infinity doesn't just go this way. Infinity also goes downwards into the scaling of size and the distinctions at like the subatomic level. If it goes upwards, it must also go inwards, right?
Yeah, for sure. I guess, I don't know.
Who knows?
What are your thoughts about like after in a deep meditation or something that gets you to the 9th dimension, when you're in a void and you've realized that you're all that there is? What does that make you feel like? And like, does it make you scared, afraid that like, yes, we put meaning to everything here, but like once you get to that void, it's almost like nothing matters? Does that freak you out?
In my experience, it's quite the opposite. It's one of the few things that truly makes me feel trust, is recognizing that it's so much bigger than myself and that I'm just a piece of this much larger framework. That eliminates a lot of my fear, because it's like, all right, whatever happens, it's like, it's so small once you've felt that totality and you've experienced what it is to be outside yourself. That's what's given me courage to go forward. Like I moved to Austin with nothing but a hope and a dream, not knowing anybody out here, just a little bit of money saved.
Where are you originally from?
Happened. I was from the Bay Area, Marin County.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, so you traveled a ways. Good for you. And how long you been down there now?
Almost 5-6 years now.
Okay, so you went down there like before it started really getting booming.
Yeah, I just wanted to be near on it, man. It was like, this is the place.
Yeah, that's a good call. So I'm actually coming down there in a couple weeks.
Can't wait, man.
Yeah, are you going to go to that certification? Are you going to that?
The landmine?
Yeah.
I think so.
You think so? Like, how do you not know?
I thought about it since you brought it up to me last.
Yeah, well, if you're interested in going, you should totally go. I know it's a little bit of money, but like whatever. I love going out and like after the Maui experience, like hanging out with all you guys and,
Yeah.
just being out in that environment, learning some of these really interesting techniques. Now, we didn't even touch on balancing of the spine. I mean, we talked a little bit of it, but like balancing of the physical spine with these coiling movements and offset mace, like how much that actually has an impact on the information that comes through us. Like I'm like always excited to learn about that type of thing, and a little bit more intricately, so I can explain it better and really stand behind it. And people buy in. It's interesting to get that feel, like people
I
resonate.
love what you're doing, by the way, Danny. I love seeing little kids coiling. I love just like watching you train in the youth with this knowledge that is just so beyond what we had growing up.
Yeah, how about that? I think about that a
We were
lot.
taught when we were younger. I don't even think there was like physical education was like dodgeball, or I don't even know what the hell we did, but I
As
didn't
long
learn
as you
shit.
get in the weight room, like you got in the weight room, it was a good thing, right? Lifting weights, however you lifted weights, bodybuilding
And
style,
that was like high school. I wasn't even lifting weights at that young of an age. Like I don't even I was
right?
playing soccer, I was doing
Right.
soccer drills, which is good. It's great stuff. But like I feel like I'm excited for the next generation. I'm excited for what it looks like when a kid that's learning these codes from you grows up and becomes someone our age.
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty awesome. And it's been an awesome ride watching some of these kids, just from the time I met them a couple of years ago, because all this that's happening right now in the last couple of years, like it's all kind of new. Like I took a jump, I stopped I stopped being a high school teacher, and I decided to go all in on all this. And little by little, it's grown. Like I've seen the synchronicities happen, the right people come at the right times, and it's very awesome. It's very wild, and I'm building a lot of awesome relationships that are great. Like it's amazing. I can't believe that this is my job. It's crazy. It's crazy to me. And like I learn more every single day. I got a great group of people around me. Like my clients are great. The people there in the gym are great. They complement what I do. Um, and then my wife too. She's an awesome counterpart. Like that is such an important piece to the puzzle. Like I've been in a great relationship for the last 13 years, like bouncing ideas back and forth with one another, like watching each other morph from this job to that job, to this stage, to that stage. And for her to always be like, dude, I'm in your corner. I'm ready to go. Whatever it is that you want to, let's do it. Like I had that growing up with my mom and dad. I strangely found that, or maybe like not strangely enough, found that in my counterpart. Like she's been super supportive. So, dude, thanks for the kind words. I'm glad someone's paying attention, man.
See you,
Appreciate it.
Danny. See you, brother.
Appreciate
Excited
it.
for you to come to Austin.
Yeah. So, like,
Austin.
I hope you end up going to that certification. If not, I would love to like get
What
together.
weekend?
It's next weekend, the 28th and the 29th.
My girl's birthday. Are you around on that Saturday?
I'm around Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, that whole weekend. So 28th, 29th up to February 1st or whatever.
So I'm throwing a party for her on her birthday, and it's going to be quite the epic activation.
Surprise, so we can like talk about it. We gotta be quiet. No, this won't come out for a while. Like I'm having trouble editing. Like I don't know how I'm gonna do that yet. But as long as I do the podcast.
I just, I think, it's her party, not mine. So I want to invite people she knows, but maybe after the initial wave, you could slide through on the late night. We'll be going all day.
Yeah.
And come experience some of what makes Austin, Texas so special, because we're really doing some magic, and this is going to be one of the gatherings of some of the best wizards in the area. So keep that in your mind and follow up with me on that. And I have either way, you definitely should come through my place and let me show you some of the tools that I'm using, from the vibrational haptic table to
I would love to.
all these things.
Yeah, I would love to. I would love to get together and hang. I'll grab your number right when I end this, and I think I actually have it, to be honest. And then we'll connect. And yeah, I'm interested to learn and see. Like I love Austin. We were down there in November, and I went to that Rock Your Taco event that they had going on. We just hopped from bar to bar. We scootered around the entire city. I love the fact that you guys have those bird scooters.
Yeah.
It's amazing. How far away are you from the downtown area?
Man, like I said, I'm a hermit. I rarely ever leave my house. I don't get out much. I'm just in here trying to change the world, take over the world. But it's nice to know it's there.
Yeah, dude, go out there, experience it as much as you can. So we've been doing this for an hour. That was a fast hour. It felt like timeless is a good sign when you don't feel like there's any time. Um, tell me where, or tell the people listening, whoever finds this podcast, where they can find more of your material if they want to watch the Judge Your Guru series or learn a little bit more about some of the breathing classes that you teach, or like how can people find you?
Totally. It's Instagram at embody, EMBODY_flow, FLOW. I have a YouTube channel that I'm working to grow. Any support on that is extremely appreciative. My goal is to put out the most transformative and distilled, potent tools available in the world for free for people. And that's Peak Transformation is the channel. And you can also check out my website, Peak, PEAKXP.com. That's BPeakXP.com, your home for transformation.
Mateo, this was fun, man. We met in June. It felt like I've known you for a long time. This conversation flew by. I look forward to connecting with you in a couple weekends, dude. Can be fun.
Yeah, brother. Good to talk to you. Let me know.
Yeah, really fun. Really fun. Dude, you're a cool guy, and keep going. We need people like you. Like I said, like we're in a weird transformational time, and I feel like the journey starts inside. It's not necessarily an external thing, or the reason why this is that is because of that thing out there having an effect. I like what you said. It's an inward thing, and that is being projected out there. And that
we
is
scratch the surface of this, man. We can go deeper on the next one. You just let me know. Holler at your boy. We'll drop gems on the people.
I like talking to you because you do go out there, and I'm usually the only one, I feel like, in my circle going out there and like talking about some of the weird esoteric things that I find, from whether it's Paul Chek or another one I wanted to share with you is Human Garage. You heard of these guys out in British Columbia, Vancouver? Human Garage. Check them out. Gary Lindman or Lindholm. These dudes are doing some really interesting things, myofascial movements, where you can at some point heal yourself with some of the trauma that gets stuck in your fascia. So this guy, I think, really knows what he's talking about. My goal.
Instagram account.
Yeah, they're at Human Garage. I also the way I found out about them is that I joined their Facebook group, and yeah, it's just really helpful information. A lot of the philosophy that aligns with what you're talking about, and I want to learn as much as I possibly can so I can share it with people, like try it on myself. So yeah, Human Garage, interesting group of people to follow on Instagram and on TikTok. They're blowing up on TikTok, dude.
So, cool. Well, I just followed them. I'm in the mix now. Thank you for the shout out.
Yeah. All right, bro. I'll hit you up when I get to Austin. Okay, I'm really excited.
See you soon. Bye now.
Bye, buddy.